Tonight, a fishing lodge on Haida Gwaii says they are going to open for business. But the Haida Nation says because of COVID-19, stay closed.
This kind of programming where we're getting Indigenous youth out, active, healthy, having fun, doing these positive moments are all connected to their culture at the same time.
And we meet the people behind a new program to get 1,000 Manitoba kids canoeing and kayaking. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The Green Party and an Ontario senator joined forces today. They're asking for an inquiry to get answers on how police responding to wellness checks can result in deaths. Such a thing happened to Chantel Moore. Jamie Pashagumskum has more.
Chantel Moore, Regis Korchinski-Paquette, Dondra Campbell, Ijaz Ahmed Chowdhury, and Rodney Levi.
May read a list of people recently lost to police violence. Most are people of color. She focused in particular on the death of Chantel Moore, who died a month ago.
How it is that a 26-year-old mother, daughter, beautiful Indigenous woman, was shot 5 times in her own apartment. Those questions cry out for answers.
To that end, May and Senator Kim Pate suggested an immediate investigation into Moore's death.
But also the death of many others, the deaths of many others, and a quick and a vital decision by the federal government about how we will implement meaningful, transparent, effective oversight of policing and corrections in this country.
Moore died when police responded to a wellness check. Green Party MP for New Brunswick, Jenica Atwin, is close to Moore's family, and she wants answers now.
I joined the call for a swift investigation. We cannot wait, over a year for any sort of answer or response on this, because the families are waiting. They have lost loved ones, and we owe it to them as parliamentarians and senators and people in government positions to lend our voice to this cause.
May said police are not the right people to send to people suffering mental health issues. May and Pate are pushing for a Senate inquiry to look into wellness check deaths. The shootings are being investigated by Quebec's Bureau des Enquêtes Indépendantes. But May says their process is too slow.
The Quebec BEI has said that they think they won't have answers for at least a year. The coroner's inquests are being postponed until we have answers from the BEI in Quebec. Chantel Moore's family is desperate for answers.
APTN reached out to the BEI, and they said on average, cases take 6 to 8 months. May feels that the Senate will be able to get answers faster, but they don't resume sitting until September. Jamie Pashagumskum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Manitoba Kuwaitnawi Okimakanak is condemning the actions of Saskatoon police over an incident involving MKO citizen Evan Penner. Video of Penner being punched and tasered by police in Saskatoon over the weekend has caused major outrage. One of the officers is currently on leave. Penner is originally from Nissequaway Cree Nation. That is also the home nation of AFN Regional Chief Kevin Hart, who joins us now. Chief Hart, thanks for joining us. You've no doubt seen the video a number of times. What are your thoughts on what you saw?
Well, obviously it was very concerning for myself, given that the person in question is indeed from my home nation of the Nissequaway Cree Nation. I immediately reached out to Chief Marcel Moody to indicate to him what had transpired. I was alerted, obviously, by Regional Chief Bobby Cameron from the FSIN on what had transpired, as well as the alert to the video. I did watch the video. It's very alarming and concerning that Indigenous people are still being stereotyped in a very violent way when it comes to the arrests of certain individuals, regardless of their background and such. That police officers are professionally trained, and even more so when we look at our health providers, nurses and doctors, and that they deal with these people each and every day at the hospital level. and you don't see people being restrained. You don't see people getting roughed up. You know, you don't see people being shot when there's wellness checks and such being performed. So, you know, it goes a long way with what we have to do when we address the systematic racism that has been built here in the system in Canada. You know, as you know, legislation, law, and policy has always dictated what we have to do as First Nations, and I think what you're seeing right now across the country is the frustration of First Nations when they see law, policy, and legislation impact them in a negative way. And even more so you see when it comes to First Nations participating in economies and such, that there's also legislation policy that restricts that. Classic example would be when we talk about farming, where every white settler was given every opportunity to use every machine and every technology available. However, the same standard when it came to First Nations is that they outlawed it where First Nations were forced to do the work by hand. Now, there's a classic example when we look at the systematic racism that was built within the Canadian system. Now, when it comes to policing, obviously, it's come to a front here in North America. You see with the video evidence that's happening and transpiring south of the border with Black Lives Matter, and even more so here on this side of the border. You know, I've reached out to the black leaders in that community just basically to tell them that for us as First Nations and Indigenous people, we know and we can definitely relate to what's transpiring when it comes to the injustices of policing, as well as the violence that is occurring when it comes to our people being involved in police matters and also criminal matters.
Chief, there are calls for the officers involved here to be fired. What would you like to see happen?
Well, obviously, right now, definitely an immediate suspension pending the review of the investigation needs to occur. And I'll work definitely with my chief from my home community, my colleague, Regional Chief Bobby Cameron from the FSIN. I have also alerted the Grand Chiefs here in the Manitoba region, both of MKO and the AMC, of what has transpired. And we are of all the like same minds that, you know, we have to protect our people first and foremost. And it's up for us as leadership to ask law enforcement officials, as well as the people that develop those policies and legislations and laws, that it's about time that we have a hard sit down with First Nation leadership, as well as the different police associations. As you know, there's been a different number of studies that have been invoked across the country. Here in Manitoba, we can go back as far as the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, for example. And as we move forward, of course, you have the TRC recommendations, you have RCAP, and of course, even now with the final report of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, you know, what needs to be asked is that there was a preliminary report done by the federal government on the release of the final report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and that at the time, leadership asked the federal government for basically a report card of what they've done to address all these chronic needs, including what's happening right now in policing.
Regional Chief, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you taking some time for us. Today, Montreal police unveiled a, quote, historic plan to guide officers while performing random street checks. The change comes 9 months after findings of systemic bias within the force. Now the question remains, how long should the public wait for results? Lindsay Richardson has more.
Between the COVID-19 pandemic and rampant issues with systemic bias, Montreal Police Director Sylvain Caron says nothing about the current reality is simple. Even so, on Wednesday, they became the first police force in Quebec promising a crackdown on racial profiling through random street checks.
Pour la première fois, une politique vient établir qu'une interpellation doit être fondée obligatoirement sur des faits observables et sans motif discriminatoire, c'est-à-dire sans égard à l'identité ethnoculturelle réelle ou perçue, la religion, le genre, l'identité, l'orientation sexuelle ou le statut socio-économique.
An independent report released in October found systemic bias within the force. Indigenous women are stopped and questioned 11 times more frequently than white women. According to Caron, police will now have to make note of a person's ethnicity during a stop and more thoroughly justify the reasons for it. A change indeed, but for some, not quite on the mark. On the eve of Caron's announcement, this group, a coalition of dozens of organizations, demanded Montreal's police budget be cut in half, with funds reallocated to culturally sensitive services.
I really hope that they do listen to us and no longer just do these small reforms that really don't lead to much.
Marvin Rotran, the city's longest-serving councillor, says Wednesday's announcement falls short, tweeting, "Don't know why it took 9 months to release policy that could have been written in 30 minutes. No admission of problem, no rules for preventing targeting of minorities, no real race-based data collection policy, and no annual report to council." With the issue now addressed in theory, attention moves to police practices. For example, an Asian teenager was tackled to the ground and arrested this week for allegedly defying social distancing orders.
She's 16, bro!
Cuffed, crying, and thrown into a squad car while 3 friends look on in horror.
She's allowed to know why. Tell me why.
We already told her.
The new provisions have limits. A Montrealer on the street can refuse to answer questions if not detained, but they can't refuse if pulled over while driving. This man was stopped by Montreal police and told he ran a yellow light. They then prodded him about immigration status and education. While video captured from above shows the same officers pepper spraying the man while still seated in the car. An all too frequent occurrence, say studies, one no longer acceptable in the current context. Caron says it's a first step and police initiatives will continue to evolve. The new guidelines will be enforced this fall, and a follow-up report is expected by 2021. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
Still to come, financial pressure is being applied to the Edmonton CFL team. A major sponsor threatens to drop its financial backing if the team name isn't changed. Stick around. Look at your Thursday weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Sunny and 19 in St. John's, 28 with showers in Fredericton. Showers and 20 in Nain, 25 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. 34 under sunny skies in Montreal, 30 in Chibougamau. 35 in Toronto, Peterborough, London, and Sarnia with showers. 28 in Thunder Bay, 28 in Sioux Lookout with rain. 15 for Churchill, 21 in God's Lake with showers. 26 for Winnipeg, 24 in Brandon. 21 in showers in Regina, Yorkton, and North Battleford. 21 in Meadow Lake and Uranium City. Welcome back. Everyone knew the federal deficit would be bad, and it is. Today, Finance Minister Bill Morneau gave a snapshot of how the COVID-19 pandemic has hurt the federal bottom line. APTN's Todd Lamarand reports.
The Honourable Finance Minister.
During his speech in the House of Commons, Finance Minister Bill Morneau described the pandemic as the emergency of our time.
And every decision we made was guided by our belief that the well-being of Canadians had to come above all else.
The aid Ottawa has rolled out since March adds up to $228 billion, resulting in a whopping $343 billion and counting deficit. In his press conference, Morneau emphasized getting ready to get people back to work rather than worrying about future debt.
The goal is to enable us to do that safely so that demand will be there for our economy. And of course, the level of that demand, the level of our effectiveness together in getting back to work and getting jobs going again will very much determine the next steps.
Opposition leader Andrew Scheer accused Prime Minister Trudeau of having no plan to get people back to work, despite spending billions.
No plan to guide our economic recovery, no plan to stimulate growth, attract business investment, or to create the conditions for job growth. I know this might come as a shock to a Liberal Prime Minister, but spending billions of dollars does not create economic growth.
Green Party MP Elizabeth May was not surprised by the record deficit.
If Canada was spending like a drunken sailor for no particular reason, and we alone in the world had decided to spend more money than we spent for decades, I'd be alarmed. But we're in a pandemic. This spending is essential, and it's essential we keep spending.
Prime Minister Trudeau shrugged off the spending and asked what Canadians would have done if Ottawa hadn't gone into debt.
They would have loaded up their credit cards. They would have scrambled to try and find ways to pay their bills and pay their groceries and figure out how to care for their loved ones.
Morneau said another fiscal snapshot or even a proper federal budget will happen in September. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
To the West Coast, and tensions are rising in Haida Gwaii over a business that wants to reopen to tourists. The Haida Nation has shut down all tourism during the pandemic, but now the British Columbia government is lifting travel restrictions, and the Queen Charlotte Fishing Lodge plans to reopen. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
The province of BC moved into Phase 3 of their restart plan, allowing for non-essential travel and opening of businesses in the province. But the Council of the Haida Nation announced plans to keep their state of emergency in place due to the risk of COVID-19. Tara Samuels is a resident of Old Masset, and off-reserve members have made a sacrifice to stay away.
Got over 1,000 people that live off-reserve, and they've been making some big sacrifices to stay where they are to out of love for their people. So we've got a very serious limitation on our health system right now.
The island of Haida Gwaii is located off the north coast of British Columbia and has been closed to non-residents for months. Public health officials have acknowledged Indigenous communities for keeping COVID-19 infections down. Luxury tourism operator Queen Charlotte Fishing Lodge announced plans to reopen Friday, July 10th, despite concerns from the Council of the Haida Nation. That announcement has caused conflict.
Still in the state of emergency on Haida Gwaii. We haven't lifted ours yet. We're still trying to protect our elders and all our knowledge keepers by keeping the tourists away for now.
On Sunday, July 5th, Queen Charlotte Lodge released a statement claiming they were harassed by members of the Haida Nation on the water. There were a number of close calls, as their staff skillfully avoided being rammed by CHN and other boats. Fortunately, there were no collisions or injuries. Queen Charlotte Lodge has repeatedly tried for many weeks to have constructive discussions with CHN regarding concerns it has raised around the operation of a commercial lodge in the current COVID-19 situation. Chief Eggers has a different take on that confrontation on the water. He says they were delivering a letter to the fishing lodge on the weekend when a large convoy heading to the lodge rushed through their members' boats.
All 42 boats went right through the middle of our convoy, and they never slowed down. They just waked all of our boats, and we had elders and children and chiefs and all of our politicians on all of the boats. So
Samuels acknowledges the lodge is fly-in, 45 kilometers from the nearest community, accessible only by boat or air, but still says there will be interactions with Haida residents, whether it is delivering supplies or if extreme weather hits the island. There have been tourists that let Haida members know that they want to visit, but they will stay away out of respect to the nation.
We appreciate everyone that's taken the respect without being asked. I think there's a big opportunity for anyone coming through these fishing lodges that, because of the disconnect to community, they don't, possibly understand the implications of what their travel is entailing.
The lodge is scheduled to reopen this Friday, July 10th. Haida leadership is hopeful the lodge will follow the lead of others on the island and remain closed. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Haida Gwaii.
A major sponsor of the Edmonton CFL team says they will end its relationship with the club if the team's name isn't changed. Longtime sponsor Bel Air Direct says the team name is no longer suited and that a name change needs to be made in order for the partnership to continue. Earlier this year, the club announced it had spent 3 years engaging with people in Canada's north and found no consensus to change the name. Now, the Edmonton CFL team has released a statement saying they will be seeking further input to make a decision. Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Here's the rest of Thursday's weather forecast. Being back up in northern Alberta, showers and 24 for Fort McMurray. Sunny and 27 in Medicine Hat. Sun's out in Lethbridge, 25. Showers and 20 for Campbell River, Vancouver and Victoria. 22 with rain for Fort Nelson, 16 and showers for Prince George. 15 in Old Crow, 18 in rain for Whitehorse. Sunny and 19 for Yellowknife, 20 in Norman Wells, 9 in Sax Harbor, plus 4 in Paulatuck. 10 for Repulse Bay, Baker Lake and Chesterfield. 9 with rain in Clyde River, 10 in Pangerton. Welcome back. A new not-for-profit organization is set to launch a paddling program this summer. The focus is on Indigenous youth and communities in Manitoba. As Daryl Stranger tells us, a former member of Team Canada's kayak team is one of the directors leading the way.
Waterways Recreation is using paddling-based programs to connect Indigenous youth with their land and water. The program will run in 9 First Nation communities in Manitoba, 3 of those being fly-in. Instructors will teach members of the community how to run the program so they can be self-sufficient.
It's an opportunity for them to get outside, experience their wilderness, and in a lot of these communities we're engaging elders and community leaders to help provide a cultural aspect to the programming. At the end of the day, we really want to provide an opportunity for recreation for these kids, we believe that this is the kind of programming that improves mental and physical health, and that's our goal at the end of the day.
The COVID-19 pandemic delayed the launch of the program, but Manitoba's low COVID-19 numbers made it possible for the program to reach Indigenous communities. James Lavallee is a former kayak sprinter for Team Canada. He walked away from the sport to devote his time to this project.
I enjoyed that for a long period of time, but for me it just came to the point where I would much rather be dedicating that same effort to creating opportunities for other Indigenous youth. And that's ultimately what pushed me to decide to retire or end my career in competitive paddling, but to start something new and create more opportunities for other people.
Lavallee also added that paddling helped him discover more about his Métis heritage, something he hopes other Indigenous kids will find with this program.
This kind of programming, where we're getting Indigenous youth out, active, healthy, having fun, doing these positive moments, are all connected to their culture at the same time. So all our programs are designed to be specific and built in collaboration with the communities, so we really can build in and enhance that cultural benefit while these athletes while these youth are getting that the physical aspects as well.
Programming has been confirmed for 1,000 youth this summer. The organization hopes to find more funding to be able to facilitate programs in Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations communities. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Great to see James was able to get the project going this summer. That's your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. See you back here tomorrow.